September 11, 2001. A date forever etched into history. What began as a normal Tuesday morning turned into one of the darkest days the world has ever witnessed. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost, and countless more changed forever. In this video, we'll walk through the events of that day, the people affected, and the legacy it left behind. The morning of September 11th was calm, clear, and bright. Across the United States, millions went about their routines, commuting to work, heading to school, and boarding flights. Among them were 19 hijackers, spread across 4 planes, each with a deadly mission. At 8:46 a.m., the first plane, American Airlines Flight 11, struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center. Initially, confusion spread. Was this an accident, a tragic aviation disaster? Just 17 minutes later, United Airlines Flight 175 hit the South Tower. At that moment, it became clear, the United States was under attack. While the world's eyes were fixed on New York, at 9:37 a.m. another plane, American Airlines Flight 77, slammed into the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. military. A fourth plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked but never reached its intended target. Passengers, upon learning of the other attacks, fought back against the hijackers. Their bravery forced the plane to crash into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Though everyone on board perished, their actions likely saved hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. As fires raged inside the towers, first responders rushed into danger. Firefighters, police officers, and ordinary citizens worked desperately to save lives. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed, sending shockwaves of dust and debris through Manhattan. At 10:28 a.m., the North Tower fell. The heart of New York City was unrecognizable. Survivors fled through streets choked with ash, searching for loved ones, while the nation and the world watched in disbelief. Nearly 3,000 people were killed that day, from office workers to firefighters, from passengers on the planes to military staff in the Pentagon. Thousands more were injured. Families were torn apart in an instant. In the days that followed, vigils were held across the world. Candles lit city squares, and strangers came together in grief and solidarity. The human cost of 9/11 extended beyond those who perished. First responders and residents would face long-term health consequences from toxic dust and debris. September 11th didn't just change New York, it changed the world. Within weeks, the United States launched the War on Terror, beginning military operations in Afghanistan to dismantle al-Qaeda and remove the Taliban from power. Airport security transformed overnight, with strict new measures that remain in place today. International relations, surveillance, and military strategies were reshaped by the events of that morning. The political, cultural, and emotional ripple effects are still felt more than 2 decades later. While the world watched New York, another attack struck at the very heart of U.S. defense. At 9:37 a.m., American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. A massive explosion ripped through the building's western side, sending black smoke into the skies above Washington. The Pentagon, symbol of American military power, was now in flames. Inside, hundreds of military and civilian workers faced chaos as fire spread rapidly through the corridors. Rescue crews rushed in, risking their lives to save others from the wreckage. For people in Washington, fear turned to panic. Were there more planes? Was the entire city under attack? Rumors of explosions at other government buildings spread. Across the nation, all flights were ordered to land, an unprecedented move. President Bush, aboard Air Force One, was moved to a secure location as the scale of the attack became clear. This was a national assault, carefully planned and executed. The Pentagon attack showed that the hijackers were not only targeting symbols of commerce, but also the very center of America's military strength. United Airlines Flight 93 left Newark that morning, heading for San Francisco. On board were 44 people, unaware of the horror ahead. At 9:28 a.m., hijackers stormed the cockpit. But unlike the earlier flights, passengers soon learned the truth. Through phone calls to family, they discovered the planes in New York and Washington had been turned into weapons. Faced with this knowledge, they refused to remain passive. Ordinary men and women decided to fight back. Using food carts and sheer determination, they stormed the hijackers. Todd Beamer's final words became a symbol of courage: "Let's roll." The struggle forced the plane off course. At 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed into a field near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. All on board were killed instantly, but their bravery likely prevented an attack on the U.S. Capitol or the White House. Flight 93 stands out as a story of sacrifice on a day filled with tragedy. Today, the memorial in Pennsylvania honors the 40 passengers and crew who acted with extraordinary courage. Each year, on September 11th, the world pauses to remember. At Ground Zero, the names of every victim are read aloud. The memorial pools stand where the towers once rose, and the Freedom Tower, or One World Trade Center, now reaches skyward, a symbol of resilience. 9/11 reminds us not only of the horror of terrorism, but of the strength of unity, courage, and remembrance. In the days following 9/11, shock quickly turned into resolve. President George W. Bush addressed the nation, declaring a global war on terror. His message was clear: those responsible for the attacks, and those who sheltered them, would face justice. Attention turned to Afghanistan, where the Taliban regime provided safe haven to al-Qaeda and its leader, Osama bin Laden. Within weeks, US and coalition forces launched Operation Enduring Freedom. Airstrikes targeted Taliban strongholds, and special forces worked alongside Afghan resistance fighters to dismantle terrorist networks. The early phase of the war was swift. By the end of 2001, the Taliban government had collapsed. But the mission was far from over. Al-Qaeda leaders scattered into hiding, and the war transformed into a prolonged conflict against an elusive enemy. For many Americans, the war on terror reshaped daily life. New security measures tightened at airports, surveillance expanded, and the Department of Homeland Security was created. The message was clear: America would never be caught unprepared again. In 2003, the war on terror took a new turn. The United States, alongside allies, launched an invasion of Iraq. The stated reason: fears that Saddam Hussein's regime possessed weapons of mass destruction and ties to terrorist groups. The invasion toppled Hussein quickly, but no weapons of mass destruction were ever found. What followed was years of violent insurgency, sectarian conflict, and a costly occupation. For many, the Iraq War blurred the lines of the original mission after 9/11. Meanwhile, terrorist networks adapted. Al-Qaeda spread into new regions, inspiring other extremist groups across the Middle East and beyond. The war on terror became not just a military campaign, but a global struggle, spanning intelligence operations, drone strikes, and international cooperation. Back home, the United States carried the weight of two long wars. Thousands of service members lost their lives, and millions of veterans returned with lasting wounds, both physical and emotional. The costs were staggering: trillions of dollars spent, countless lives changed. From Afghanistan to Iraq, the war on terror shaped an entire generation. And yet, through it all, the memory of 9/11 remained the guiding force, a reminder of why it began, and the sacrifices made in its aftermath. September 11th was a tragedy beyond words. But it also revealed extraordinary bravery, ordinary people who became heroes, strangers who helped strangers, and a nation that vowed never to forget. History cannot be changed, but it can be remembered. And in remembering, we honor those we lost and those who gave everything to save others. Thank you for watching, and may we never forget.